That's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy. That's me, Matthew Syed. Another set of meaty topics. First up, we're going to discuss pressure and preparing for a massive sporting event. Then we're going to ask if we could travel back in time to any historical event, what would it be? Remember, use the hashtag FredSavSide to suggest future topics. But before we get into the meat, let's talk about what we've been up to this week. And
what's the first topic again? Preparing for matches.
What?
Preparing for massive
What?
matches and series. Well, I should leave now, really. I'm prepared for now.
Because you can't say it. It's because you can't say it or you've never done it.
They'll leave me alone. Leave me alone.
what a
It's been a
start
long
to
week.
the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I was listening to last week's podcast and it's fair to say I got a bit of a kick in last week, lads.
From us.
Yes.
Well,
Knock down Ginger.
Knock down the ginger, yeah. So it's the first time that you have been on the receiving end of a proper
He gives it out. We
hammer.
can't take it.
We,
See?
I
we
enjoyed
get it
it.
right, Roberto.
I enjoyed it. I was in my car listening on the way home. I was giggling away.
I've got a few reviews from your show to read out in a bit, so I'm looking forward to that. So what have we done this week, Matthew? So anyway, I'm well into rehearsals for Strictly.
Yep.
What is it? 1 minute? How long?
1 minute 50.
1 minute 50. And you've
Yeah.
been practising how long now for that?
I've done about 8 sessions.
And where are you up to? 35 seconds? 40 seconds?
Now I'm up to 1 minute 50, Andrew.
Oh.
My partner, Dan Buswell, she's a fantastic teacher.
Yep.
But I've had one of the most embarrassing moments of my life this week.
Oh, it must be.
We've done
bloody
Seriously?
embarrassing.
Worse than playing for Blackburn.
That's a high bar.
Why are you starting again? Just relax.
Just getting in first.
I know. We've done embarrassing moments on a previous podcast,
Yeah.
but this, if we're doing the podcast now, I think this would be up there as probably, when I had the runs in the lift. Do you remember all that? I think this
On holiday?
Yeah, on holiday. This is, if not worse. So basically, in the routine, so we went to London to do a group rehearsal in a lovely hall theatre. I think it was something. I don't know where it was. So anyway,
You don't know where it was.
it was a big hall.
Made an impression then, didn't it? It was lovely. Whole theatre.
It was a lovely roof, a ceiling. Anyway, we practiced.
The ceiling.
I don't know
Wow,
what
he was inside.
What a place this
What a
was.
story this is, Rob.
Anyway, so we danced until 5 o'clock. So I said, because I'm a bit behind, I need to, do a couple more hours. So anyway, went to another studio and we danced. So Diane brought up a guy who she knew from Australia just to help me a little bit on my ballroom hold, because he's fantastic. Chris, his name was, fantastic ballroom dancer. Anyway, there's silence in the room. There's silence in the room. So he said, right, what you should do, Robbie, is spin her out to the right. I'm spinning out to the right, and I lunge into my left leg. So my right arm's out, my left leg's lunged the other way.
Yes.
Then I spin her back in, and as she spins back in, I've got to grab her on the hips and lift her up. So I've got to get into my knees and squat and then lift it up. So as I'm doing that, so I've spun it out, brought it back in, and as I squat, farted. Mate.
No.
Yeah.
What sort of noise of a fart was it? Was it wet? Was it dry? Was it loud? Was it a
But it wasn't it wasn't one of those where you hold in.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Do it. Go on.
It was like a... Well, not
What? It was a horse?
No, it was more of a cow.
What? A cat?
That's the most unusual one I've ever heard.
Yeah, but it was...
But was it audible to the Australian guy and your
She cracked up and he cracked up. Mate, I went... She's got red hair, Dan, and my face was as red as her hair. It was so embarrassing.
What about smell on a scale of 1 to 10?
No, because I'm on this diet, so I think it's on this diet. I think the broccoli and all the veg is built up in my stomach. But it wasn't one of those when you're thinking, when you're somewhere. What? Oh. But when you're somewhere and you can feel your tummy gurgle and you think, I'm gonna trump. Yeah. But it wasn't even that feeling. It was just, there was no feeling. So I didn't even know. Because if you'd have that feeling...
It was a shock to you.
It was a shock to everybody. It was just horrific.
This isn't being filmed though, right, when you did that?
No, it was silence.
Right.
It was silence. Anyway, it was so embarrassing. But then she was great. I've got 2 brothers, so it was out the way.
What's her family got to do with it?
Well, because obviously she's grown up.
Also, she had heard that kind of
The
stuff.
Aussies fart and burp in the house all the time.
So anyway, that was embarrassing. But anyway,
It's the sort of pre-Ashes banter already started.
So we finished the dance. Anyways, got my routine sorted finally on Thursday. So then Friday,
Yep.
me and Stanley, the two most second.
Can I just say before you go on to this, he's been sending me the clips of him dancing.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, I don't mind saying, I'm actually very impressed.
I saw one last week. I saw a couple last week.
Yeah.
He's doing well.
Doing all right.
He's
Compared
really
with
doing
how
well.
good you were when you did the Strictly
Yeah.
a couple
Yeah.
of years ago. A few years
Because
ago.
in my show, I do a waltz.
What is it? Is that what it's called?
Well, that's exactly right. It's only 4 steps. And I ruin it every night. I can't get it. And then I'm seeing him doing these steps.
Yeah.
And credit where it's due.
Thank you,
Rob.
Andrew.
I think it's fantastic.
It's out of your comfort zone as well. I mean, having to dance and to strut and to do what is the moves you're doing? Is it
It's an American smooth we're doing.
American smooth?
American smooth. So it's a ballroom frame, you know. But it's weird because you have to go on your toes, balls of your feet, but bend your knees and glide. You glide, and you can't like rise and fall. Anyway, it was good.
Are you a dancer, Matthew? Do you dance? You bust a few moves out there.
I actually talking about my week.
You've been dancing?
Briefly. No, last night we had a reunion. The England table tennis day. We do it once a
sounds
year.
like cracking, dude.
Wow.
Frito wasn't there. Des wasn't
You'll
there.
have your Donny shorts on and your butterfly shoes.
Skylar Andrew was there. Now a football
wow.
agent.
Who?
Sky Andrew.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Terry Young. Darren Blake. You know, a lot of banter. Brilliant. I miss it. I miss the dressing room.
Terry
so
Young
much.
and Darren Blake. Who were they?
The former England
Come on,
internationals,
Robbie,
Commonwealth gold medalists.
Terry Blake. What's his name?
I shouldn't have mentioned them.
Who's
I
his
knew.
name?
Robbie
I knew
thinks
they would
Robbie thinks it's him who got kidnapped.
That's Teddy Wade. That's Teddy Wade. So go on.
So go on, tell us about you.
Then, so we met in a bar in Notting Hill.
Which
Oh,
one?
had to be Notting Hill.
It was
wouldn't
called E&O.
Right.
So it's kind of like a restaurant stroke bar. And then we went round the corner to a nightclub, the name of which I can't
You
remember.
went nightclubbing, Matthew
Went
Syed.
nightclubbing last night. I had my new clobber on.
What did you have
looking
on? What did you
quite
go for?
Had the shirt, the jacket, the Chelsea boots. The guys who used to hammer me for my clothing, not quite as bad as you do, they're like, wow, you're actually looking quite smooth. And then we went to a club, and then
Seriously, nobody said that, did they?
well,
Nobody said
they may have
that.
been sarcastic.
They were talking about your head.
the best line
Thanks, Matthew.
ever. So yeah, I do a bit of dance. I'm not very good at it. I think I'm
what were you
quite
dancing
self.
to?
Yeah.
What was the music?
It was stuff I didn't recognise, so quite modern.
Do you
stuff.
dance?
Post
You dance?
ABBA, post 1980s. But I love dancing, but I'm very self-conscious if I haven't been drinking. But I drank quite a lot.
Do you
before getting
dance on the
so I'm
dance
slightly
floor? You got on the dance floor and danced?
Yeah. You don't do that?
You danced. What, do you let yourself
do.
go?
Well, I do, but I have to. I mean, if I've had a couple of drinks, then I can really let it go. And I think in my own mind, I'm dancing really, really well. But at Kizza's, my wife's brother's
You're just
wedding,
moving there. If you was to describe the style of your dancing, what would it be? Would you be
energetic.
urban,
yeah.
street?
Yeah. Lots of arms, lots of legs, not enough hip movement.
To be fair, you
apparently.
do. Did you ever see that game Street Fighter?
No.
Have you not seen Street Fighter? Dalsim, the fellow whose arms go really long.
yeah.
I reckon you'll be like him on the dance floor.
Are you a sexy mover?
Do you not dance on the dance? If you go do you not go clubbing anymore? I don't do it that much, but when you do, it's great to get
But
on
the last
dance
time
floor
I
and
went
let go.
clubbing was with Robbie. But it was a day club, wasn't it?
Yeah,
In Ibiza.
Ibiza.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a dancer. I don't get out there, but I like a bit of a...
Your head goes.
Just a bit of an head nod and a bit of a wiggle.
Yeah.
Bit of a wiggle,
It's
waggle.
great, isn't it?
Yeah, at the right time.
But that's why I think what you were saying about Robbie, outside the comfort zone. I mean, having to dance, a choreographed dance in front of, judges, in front of millions of people.
50 million at Christmas Day.
Biggest television show. I think that is really...
You were speaking earlier as well about, what we mentioned off air about, I said how much money is Teddy earning this week. So people didn't listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
You said every time he hits it in the middle of the racket, it's 20p.
Yep.
And we hammered you for that. So
Yeah.
did he make any money this week?
that was really interesting because, as you say, Teddy started playing tennis for the first time. He's only 3. And to try and incentivize him, I was saying, if you can hit the ball in the middle of the racket 10 times, I'll give you 20p.
Yeah.
And you said that is absolutely ridiculous to turn your son at that young age into a mercenary. But I got tons of feedback on Twitter, including from some top coaches saying you should never pay young people to play
Really?
sport.
Really?
It should be about the joy of the sport.
Yeah.
Call it intrinsic motivation. If you start giving an external motivator, it's all about the money. They forget about the joy of the sport itself. And as soon as that incentive is taken away, they don't want to play anymore.
Really?
So you've got to encourage them to love the sport for its
So
own
you've stopped
sake.
it?
So we've been playing a lot of tennis this week. He loves it. He doesn't doesn't need the money.
No, he's fun. It's
Enjoys
time
it.
with his dad.
Exactly. So I appreciate the feedback.
there you
But
go.
Moving on.
first bit of advice I've taken from you, Robbie.
Thank you.
I've not any yet. Do you know last week we were talking about FIFA points?
Yes.
Yes.
This was a whole new world for me.
Right.
This FIFA packages and points and opening them up
Yeah.
and buying them. I've fallen foul of this. I'm at the wrong end of it.
Why?
Having breakfast with the kids this morning, and we sat down, we're talking. Turns out my kids have been buying FIFA points.
No way.
On a credit card which had been lost but not been cancelled.
No.
So they've just been chalking it up.
Wow.
So for the past few weeks, quite a significant amount of money on buying their dream team. So I
Yeah.
said, well, who've you got then? Indulge me, who've you got?
Yeah.
They said, we've sold them all, we've just kept Peter Schmeichel.
He's a legend
I
on
said,
it.
he's a legend. I say, if you put another 50 quid in, we could have had the real thing. Hey? Peter Schmeichel. That's the only one they've kept. Oh, spew, 'cause I'm not into any of that. Spewing.
Well, you've not been there because this week,
Yes.
myself and Stanley on Friday, because we had to go to Leeds, so me and Fred had a game of darts. There's a big darts event over Christmas,
Yeah.
the World Championship darts, so me and Fred had to play darts against each other.
Right.
So we stayed in Leeds, me and Stanley, and went to watch that man, Kevin, over there, Andrew Flintoff, in his musical. And
Yeah.
I've got to say...
But honest review.
Yeah.
Honest review.
Shall I give a few reviews before Freddie says it, or should
Yep.
we let Freddie talk about it then review?
Well, it's been a big week for the musical this week.
You-
Tuesday night
you
was
start.
the world
Yeah.
premiere. It was a gala event. It was
Yeah.
a gala evening. The press are invited. Guests are invited. Some of the original cast from Fat Friends, the drama,
Wow.
TV drama, came to watch. My mum and dad came to watch. And you talk about all these people in the press. I'll be honest with you, I could not care less.
Really?
The press being in there. But my mum and dad,
Yeah.
me dad sat there and I'm thinking, what is me dad thinking here? I'm walking across the stage in a boiler suit. You know, I'm going to sing any time now. He's seen me do some things. He's a northern man. He says exactly what he thinks. That's my lad. The first scene, I've got to fix a door, right? So I made sure I fixed this door so well, because out of everything he'd done, if I had to fix that door, he said, he's not done that right. He's not done that right. So mum and dad came in. Luckily, they absolutely loved it.
Oh.
And then I had the same thing again.
Can you see their facial expression while you're acting?
I didn't look out towards the crowd
Right.
to try and find them. I didn't want to see them. I saw them at the end when the lights come on and you take your bows.
Yeah.
Because, my dad's tall and he's a bit taller than everybody else standing up.
Oh, that's where it comes. The giganticism is genetic.
Yeah. So we did that. And then Friday, him and Stanley came.
Yeah.
And it was exactly the same thing where you think you want to try hard. Even harder, you want to put a good show on because the lads are in and people. I'd sooner nobody that I know
Yeah,
in the crowd.
Mate, can I just say, I'm not just saying it.
Yep.
Listen, I know my best pal, I'm not just saying it. But Stanley, he couldn't wait to see it. All day, he was so excited, Stanley, seriously. So we went for something to eat just before it. Anyway, we sit in our seats. We met Sam Bailey, who's a big Leicester fan.
She loves you.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Curly Watts, Kevin Kennedy, great. All the cast, there was so many there, all lovely people. So we're sitting there. Anyway, on he comes, and I've got to say, there's 1,400 people there. It was so daunting because me and Stan went on the stage. Fred took us backstage before the doors opened, and what beautiful theatre in Leeds.
Is it?
And I could not have done that. It is so. It takes huge balls to do what
So are
you've
we
done.
talking like directional lights?
Yeah.
Darkened theatre.
Yeah,
Have you been to theatre?
Not the one in Leeds, because you get
It's
the
like
spot-
all theatres, aren't they? They're all the same.
Yeah, but you get the Orange Tree in Richmond is tiny.
No, it's big.
But
this
this is
one.
a big,
It's massive. Proper theatre.
So you were saying that you don't look out to see the people that you know because it increases the pressure.
But you can't
When you're-
see. You can see the first four
Right,
rows
because it's dark.
And it's dark.
When you were playing cricket and your dad and mum would come to Lords, would you go and spot where they were?
Yeah, I knew exactly where they were.
Right.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Go on, Rob.
So, I thought he was. I'm not just saying it, but I was surprised how good he was. The acting was brilliant. You know, his singing was good. You know, good. Good. So I'll leave a couple of reviews before he says what it was like. So, this is from a Huddersfield paper. Andrew Freddie Flintoff captured nice but dim Kevin well, which obviously is not hard, and won plenty of laughs, but sadly, his vocals just went up to the task. I mean, anyone's going to be challenged duetting with Jodie Prenger. but her talent only made his average abilities more obvious. As an actor, the cricketing star captured the lead accent well, but at times he was a touch wooden in his delivery.
Wooden?
Wooden, Ash. The Only Fool Is Me was a great soft interlude in Act 2, but sadly, the orchestra drowned him out. Freddie Flintoff, famous for playing cricket and sports personality of the year 2005, is actually quite good. He can sing, he can dance, and he can't, and he can act.
You can't. You're making this up now. Are you freestyling here, Robbie Savage? What's going on?
And he can act. Clearly, a man of many talents. His character of Kevin loves every glorious curve and sexy inch of Kelly. Hey, and I seen that. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Does it get intimate on the stage?
There was a
Carry on with your review.
There was a 15-second snog.
What?
Oh,
It's not a snog.
What is it? What is it then?
Right, we come out and then we do this scene and then we sing a song
do you lip
together.
touch?
Can I finish, Matthew, please? Because there'll be people listening to this.
His wife will be
Including
listening for the
Rachel.
first time.
So it finishes off with a kiss.
He's panicking.
With a kiss.
Yep.
And it's not a snog. It's not an open mouth thing.
What is it then?
It's a stage kiss.
Hang on a second. Do your lips and your fellow
Yes, they
actor,
do. They touch, but it's not
and
like...
it's a lingering.
But I
kiss.
can't...
Yes.
On radio, you can't really demonstrate it.
Do it to your hand, like you used to in school.
That's no good to people driving, Rob, is it?
Well, they'll see it on the video. Put the video on 5 line.
It's a radio show, Rob.
Yeah.
So it's just like out. You move your head.
you might
The
move it.
worst thing about it is, right, it then gets broken up by Kevin Kennedy, Curly Watt shouting on.
Uh-huh.
So we go into this, and then I'm kissing her, and then from the crowd, all I hear is, "Go on, Freddie!" It's him. He's him shouting out. He's shouting out.
You didn't.
So the two of us
Get
just
in
start,
there, my son.
the two of us just start giggling. I just say under my breath, "Effing savage."
That was the first kiss. There was 4. Anyway,
Were they all 15 seconds long?
no, the first was 15. The other 2 were probably about 2 or 3 seconds.
Exactly.
Freddie,
Rob.
I
Carry on
don't
with your
want to go on about this.
Well, you are doing, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. Does Rachel know that this is part
Have we got any subjects this week?
Rachel doesn't know yet.
But does she? She hasn't seen it, but she doesn't even know that this happens.
Do you know I have a peck?
Oh,
You, if your wife
yeah.
was an actress and kissing a bloke, how would you feel?
Do you know what? I've thought about that.
Have you?
Yeah,
Because I'm not that jealous a person.
So would you have an
And I
open
think the
marriage?
reason for that is that I thought you were going to say.
Have you got an open marriage? Have you got one of them? Just sort your wild
I'll tell you what, my Fred is so clever. He's so smart. He's under pressure
Deflects
with the
it,
kiss
doesn't he?
scene, and then he
Deflects
just deflects it straight back on.
20 years of a dressing room, that deflect.
Hey,
Great
brilliant.
deflect.
Gets all his table mates around. They're gonna get a bowl in the middle. Throw your car keys in, Don Parker, Desi Douglas. Tuck your car keys in, son.
Teddy Boyle. What's his name?
Terry Waite. Chuck your car keys in. Oh.
So have you thought about it? So what would you feel?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty. I'm not that possessive. I think the reason is because we trust each other,
Yeah.
and I think that helps a lot.
It's a job. It's acting.
But exactly, I think if you were on set and you saw that it's contrived, there are lights and there's a director and it's somebody that you just go and you have the kiss and then you disappear, I think I'd probably be all right.
So
But you don't know until you actually experience it.
How would
So
you feel?
I've been thinking about this as well, and I've been watching it, and I'm thinking about it.
During the snog, or
And, yeah, and I'll be honest with you, no disrespect, there's no fun in it. It's not like I'm dancing with someone, is it? It's not like I'm spending 6 hours a day touching another woman's body, and my hands are going everywhere, and I'm picking her up, and my nose is in places that my nose should never go, and I'm doing all this. It's not like that, is it? So I think, you know what? It's probably not quite right, but it could be worse. I could be doing Strictly.
Yeah, but if it was,
All right, Rob.
if it was Rachel,
all right, Rob.
if it was Rachel,
It's
if it
not
was
though, is it?
Rachel
It's not though, is it?
It's not.
I only deal in fact. I deal in hard facts.
Rob's turned in.
Fair point.
As we found out last week with the flat Earth, I deal in facts. I don't believe in fiction. I don't believe in hearsay. I just believe in the hard facts.
Anyway, moving on.
How do you feel about?
It's like a
Moving on.
sauna in here, Rob.
Moving on.
Leeds
Leeds Living. The The real
another
wild,
review.
the real wild card in this production was former England cricket star Andrew Freddie Flintoff, who was not only making his stage debut as Kevin, but bravely in a big new musical too. He's actually pretty good as the daft fiancé who nearly ruins the big day. Although his singing voice lacks power,
Yeah, I agree with
especially
that.
when he takes on Pregna during Stuck on You, mind you, whatever his limitations, it's fair to say this was.
Text on what? Pregnant?
I'll tell you, you're reading out
When
loud.
he takes on
David.
Pregna. That's the
Prenger.
lady.
Prenger.
Oh, Prenger.
You've thought about 3 different things already. You're Prendergast in a minute.
Well, listen, it's the same when you snog for 15 seconds. Mind you, whatever his limitations, it's fair to say this was by far the best musical theatre debut by a man who has won the Ashes for his country.
Well, that's a bit backhanded, isn't it? Let's be honest. That's a backhanded
If they'd said
compliment.
ever, I'd have been even
The
better.
best debut by an ex-England cricket captain.
And the last review,
That's a pretty positive review.
yeah, and
that.
the last one, on Magazine, Kevin, played by none other than broadcast and cricketing legend Andrew Freddie Flintoff. Having retired early from cricket due to a recurring knee injury, Flintoff has thrown himself into just about every unlikely activity offered to him and usually emerged triumphant. Most people cannot even say the name, Freddie Flintoff, without a smile on their faces, and the guy has done it again with his role in Fat Friends. He has a surprisingly pleasant singing voice and ambles his way through the role of Kevin like a walk in the park. He is a great foil for the exuberant Prenger and an extremely likeable character.
Fred.
So Huddersfield, you can jog on. I won't be going back there.
That is real. Genuinely, that's so impressive.
Yeah, honestly.
On your first press night in a totally unfamiliar activity to deliver in the way that you've delivered, and to get that kind of press notice is amazing.
But the thing about it was, I was
do you
never,
think?
I was never too bothered about the reviews until they were good. No, because the reason I'm doing it, I knew I would be a very, very easy target.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
shoot down, and I was expecting a few like the Huddersfield one. I take the singing on board.
Uh-huh.
But wooden to me is a lazy review when you start calling people wooden. Think
Yeah.
of a different word.
But
But the thing about it is, though, I judge it on the people I'm working with are all supportive.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of every night, everyone's on their feet clapping. I'm entertaining them.
Yeah.
If it's not for everyone, it's not for everyone. But I'm not doing it for the reviewers.
Is it difficult to keep the energy? I looked at the run because I was planning to come up next Wednesday, but you're not actually performing next Wednesday, are you?
No.
But it amazed me how much you're doing. It's not one
Long
a day.
show.
Sometimes it's two. I mean, if I got the calendar right, there
I
were
did
some
2
shows where
yesterday,
there were
2 on a Thursday.
How do you get the energy levels up to perform in front of that many people over and over again?
Well, it's only been 2 weeks, hasn't it? So the novelty of it has worn off a little bit. I don't mean that disrespectful.
Yeah.
But you go out
I
there
get
and
that.
you got to be professional.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, you go out, the crowds have been unbelievable. And you feed off that a
Right.
little bit.
Yeah.
And then backstage, you might be a little bit flat or something. But then as soon as you go out there, you become that character you're playing.
And you figuring out when you need to eat in advance of it, how much...
I've lost a bit of weight, to be honest. It's quite bizarre on Fat Friends. I've lost quite a bit of weight trying to get food.
do you know what? It's a great thing for anybody though, because
Yeah.
you think, right, so these people, and it's a bit like with journalism. Remember when I said about, I never trained as a journalist, and there might be a few bitter, jealous people out there because somebody who was an average Premier League player goes into a job which I'm taking off somebody who might have trained for years.
Yeah.
So with Freddie, he's gone in there, and there'll be people who've tried to be in musical theatre or theatre all their lives. But then this cricketing legend, as the review says, comes in,
Yeah.
not done it at all before, but I think he's gained the respect of those other actors and actresses because...
He
But
prepares.
it's gone both ways as well. I put a few noses out of joint.
Yeah, but
I can live with that.
yeah, but on the whole, he's dedicated to it.
Yeah.
He hasn't turned up in his Lamborghini and Ferrari every night showing off. He's gone in his Kia. So he got that right. Imagine him turning up in the first night. Who's this geezer in his lap? So he's been clever, which he can be clever. Turned up in his Kia. Give it that
One man of the people.
But I think it's a great thing for everybody. If you're not comfortable doing so, if you throw yourself into it, you're dedicated, you work hard,
Yep.
do you know what I mean? You're not bigger than anybody else.
Yeah.
I think they respect him because he's
totally
one of
agree.
them.
Yeah.
He's a legend, but he's one of them now, and I think they take the hats off to him.
And
But also, as well, getting back to critics, there's a Theo Roosevelt quote which is amazing. I'm not going to read it all out, but it is not the critic who counts. And it goes on and on and on about the man in the arena, and he's brilliant. But talking about cars, I went in the Mini for the first time on Friday. We went in the Mini, me, Stanley and Robbie.
With the big
Stanley
lights.
was squashed in the back. One of the doors doesn't work. The lights are pink. He drives down the motorway, right? This was brilliant. We're driving down the motorway, and one person recognises him and the car. But then what he does as he's driving, he's always looking out the window, trying to get recognised in his car. Look at me, I'm Robbie Savage, I'm driving a Mini. Doesn't he, Stan? Stan's nodding his head. He drives down the motorway and the M62 looking out of his window, just making sure people recognise him in his Mini. It's like, and he comes and he says, oh, you'll never guess, people are recognising him in his Mini all the time. Because he's got his head out the window. That's why. You're like a dog with his head out the window with tongue going. Don't think I didn't clock that, Robbie Savage. I don't know.
He's trying to get people to recognise him.
He's pathetic.
He started at the petrol station, so we put up in the petrol station. He's got his knees on his chin in the front because one of the seats doesn't go back far enough. Stanley's in the back with all his luggage. Yeah. So you imagine three of us up the motorway in the Mini, like gigantism in the front. Stanley, who's like, he's on the weights every day and he's getting ridiculous shape. He doesn't do his legs, you know. So you imagine.
Says Robbie wears tights because he won't show his legs.
I've got skinny legs. You imagine that going to the motorway. The car's be foot flat to the floor, 70 mile an hour. It won't go any faster because they're weight in the Mini. It's rattling. There's pink lights on the side. Stanley said you can change them, but you can't change them. But it looks great. The fog lamps don't work. Private Edge, yeah, Private Edge. Only 299 quid.
What?
What?
You have a personalised number plate as well?
On one of my cars.
On which one? The Ferrari or the...
Stop it.
Anyway, right.
Should we do one?
Let's do one.
Dear me.
The Ashes start in Australia this week.
Why have you put that voice on? We're just talking then, and you've gone, the Ashes starting.
Mike said
I know we're talking about cars, but you don't have to turn into Jeremy Clarkson. Hey, what's going on?
You did.
Can I do that again?
No.
The Ashes started in Australia this week. England have already suffered some injuries. They've been taken to see some alligators. But today we're going to talk about preparation for a big sporting series or match. What are the good and bad examples of how you get in the best frame of mind to perform? And remember, for the Ashes, it's a long tour. You're away from home. Freddie, you've played in the Ashes. You've won the Ashes. What's your sort of take on what constitutes great preparation? Can it go over the top sometimes? How would you
I think it's finding that balance. You both know that preparation to anything is key. Preparation is the one thing that gives you confidence going into a series, going into a match. If you turn up to something knowing that you've done everything you possibly can to perform in that game, in that series, gives you that extra edge. There's nothing worse, and I've been on both sides of it, where I've turned up for matches, for series, knowing that I've not really put the hard yards in, and you've got to wing it a little bit. But the Ashes is different. You get on that plane, the attention around it is so much greater than any other series in which you play.
How long before you get on the plane is your thinking directed at the Ashes? Is it 6 months out? Is it a year out? When do you start to think about that's where it's going to come?
You know what? I think the Ashes is always on your mind. Because firstly, even during the summer, you want to be in the Ashes squad. So although you're playing for England, you're making sure you do well to win, but also be on that plane for the winter. My experience of it was slightly different. I was coming back from injury, so my rush was to be fit. And you talk about bad preparation, and through no fault of my own, because I did everything I needed to do, I turned up fit, but not match fit, having played any cricket. And I was captain, I got there, and I wasn't sure what type of form I was in, how fast I was going to bowl, how it was all going to go, because I'd not really done anything. And from leaving on the plane, it's just a completely different kettle of fish to anywhere else you go. It's what everyone's talking about. It's what in the newspapers. It's in the news. You land at the other side. Everyone knows you're arriving. Even the customs guys, as you get to Australia, are on you straight away. They're making it difficult for you, even to get through. And you come out the other side, there's the TV cameras. Everyone, as you walk out, they might be waiting for someone they've not seen for 20 years with a banner, but they'll still tell you to F off on the past. It's like, it don't matter. And then even on the streets, everyone's letting you know, everyone's telling you how bad you are, how you're going to get beat, this, that, and the other. And they're just on you constantly. So if you've not prepared and done everything you possibly can, you will start to think these things. And the team in which I captained and played, I think were almost beat before we got there. Because we couldn't compete with this side. We didn't know what to expect. But I think it'd be different for these lads.
So you know the warm-up games? So when you land, you have the warm-up games before the first test. How important are those games? As you say, can you play your way into form? Or would the selection you'd know the starting 11. Can you play your way into an Ashes starting 11 for the first test in those warm-up games, or they just get your form?
You almost want to turn up fit and confident, but slightly undercooked.
Right.
You don't want to be peaking in them first few games, but you still want to be in a position where you're going to improve over the first 3 weeks of the tour, going into the first test. But we play against the President's 11 or the Prime Minister's 11, and it's a mixture of good players and retired players.
Yeah.
We got beat by 250 runs.
Really?
We just got hammered. And then from that, it didn't get any better. Yeah. And you turn up for the first test match, and it was awful.
But is your mindset in those games, those warm-up, don't get injured? So would you be steaming in under like 90 mile an hour, or would you be thinking, got the first test in 3 weeks, I've got to like just maybe hold back a little bit here?
My problem was, if I held back, especially as a bowler, I was no good.
Right.
I couldn't. I was either all in or nothing.
Yeah.
I wasn't like a skillful bowler like a Jimmy Anderson who swung it, who could just ease back and rely on swing. I had to be all out every time. And that's, I think, where I got injured a few times. Because if I ran in and just eased back, I didn't know where it was going. Yeah. Everything had to be going in one direction, full on. So, yeah. And I wanted to make an impact on a tour as well. Right. And then you're playing against lads who, some of them have got aspirations of playing for Australia. Some of them make a name for themselves. So sometimes the warm-up games are a bit feistier than the actual Ashes.
Can the preparation ever be over the top? So I'm thinking about the England team going out for a tour, not just with a psychologist and a batting coach and a fielding coach, but also a nutritionist, a toenail cutter.
Oh, there's all sorts.
Right. Now, does it sometimes happen that they're so focused on getting performance high that it starts cluttering your mind? It's over-prescriptive. You want to play with freedom. You want to be able to play with your own personality. But when you've got all these different people telling you what to do, can that be a problem?
The only thing I didn't like about that was you look at the start of my career to when I finished, you look at a team photograph and it got bigger and bigger and bigger because there's more and more people coming on tour. Yeah. And I like my own time. I like my time off. I didn't want to go for a massage every night. I didn't then want to go and speak to someone else or go and do something else or fill a form in or check what I'm eating. I like my downtime. Yeah. But I suppose it's each to their own.
Right. Some people like that. But others need to have a bit more space.
I don't want a computer analyst. I don't want to go and watch. I don't want to go and dissect my technique.
Interesting.
I'm more of a field player as opposed to a visual. And I know myself. I don't need someone to tell me. Yeah. But these lads now on the Australia trip, the hardest thing for them will be is going out there and just playing. Just have that no fear of failure. You talk about pressure. The only pressure that can affect you is the one you put on yourself. You can't affect the outside world. You can't affect the press. You can't affect the public. You still got to keep that clear mind and believe in what you do, what you've done, and the reason you're there in the first place.
So the first test is at the Gabba, is it?
Yeah.
The Gabba. So the hotel the night before, 2 days before, when do you the team meetings, do they get shorter, do they get longer? You know, what is that?
I hated team meetings.
That's me too.
Did different coaches conduct the team meetings in different ways?
Yeah, I don't know what they're like now, and I can't really speak. But some that I was in, you go in right, and then you start talking about the opposition, and then you're playing against a good side. I don't need to talk about them. You know, I know Ricky Ponting's brilliant. I know what he can do. I know what he can't do. And then they talk about where you bowl at him, or you bowl here and you do this and that. My good ball is a good ball.
Yeah.
I try and bowl my best ball every ball.
Yeah.
You know, whoever it may be, it don't matter. If it's a bad ball, I'll get belted. And then they put videos up. And then you see Ricky Ponting scoring all these runs and you're thinking, where am I going to bowl at him? And then you talk so much about the opposition. You talk about where they can score, what they do, all the strengths, if they've got some possible weakness or something you can exploit. If I was a coach, I'd go the other way. I'd talk about us. I'd get to know my own teammates. You know, we talk about other people's weaknesses. Yeah. Let's talk about, for instance, like, I'm only just mentioning his name because he's my mate. Steve Armisen, tell me about you. Yeah. Tell me about what I've got to look for in you. I know when you're doing well. I know when it's all going good. Give me some tells. If you're struggling a little bit, let me speak. Let me and the team, let's identify it and help you rather than I know more about Ricky Ponting.
It's really interesting because if you were to become the England coach, that would be quite a big transformation in the way that team meetings are conducted. Is there anything else that you would do differently if you're running the Ashes now as head coach of England? Would you be getting to the ground earlier? Would you get there later? Would you have less support staff? Would you do well, you probably wouldn't have motivational. What speeches? Yeah, how would the build-up games? What sort of differences do you think you would make given the experiences you've had?
I think the hardest thing with the build-up games now is when you go on an Ashes tour, there's games in which you have to play. It's tradition that you play against the Prime Minister's 11. Just logistically, you'll go and play a warm-up game in Adelaide, or you might play one somewhere else. So it's all set in stone. I think what's happening now more and more is they're taking guidance from the players. I think as a coach, you're providing what the players need. As a coach, you're not going out there and playing. You're a facilitator. You've got to make them players feel the best they need. So before the tour starts, I think that's when the meetings are most crucial. A month out, 6 weeks out. What do we need in preparation for this tour? What do you individually need? Yeah. And the hardest thing about that is from a playing point of view, is if you're going to tell a coach that, then you're going to give away a few weaknesses. Yeah. And you've got to be confident enough in your own ability and have the trust of the coach to feel this is what I need. Yeah. This is an area in my game I struggle with. This is mentally something I struggle with. Can you help me? So I think trust plays a massive part.
Is the heat a factor? The heat?
Not really.
Not really at all.
For the first few days, it's hot. And then you sweat. I've never struggled with it. You just get hot, don't you? Lose a bit of weight.
I want to ask both of you about the worst team meeting you've ever been in. But I'll throw one in because we were playing Japan, table tennis, World Championships 97. I'd started brilliantly at this team competition. I'd won all my matches up to that point. And the coach said, OK, Matthew, you're going to play one match in the middle. Carl and Cookie, you're going to play 2 matches. Because he was trying to get me... The Japanese are good against defence, which is my style of play. And then Prino said, no, I think Sid, Matthew, should play 2 matches. And instead of actually taking the coach's selection, which I think was the right decision, we started debating it. And then we started talking about my weaknesses and the strengths of the Japanese, and I don't think he'll beat him, and that guy's got a huge forehand. I've got to tell you, in the end, I did play 2 matches. The coach reversed his decision, but my confidence was shot to pieces because we had been talking so much about the strengths of the opponent and the weaknesses of us that we went in a state of fear, and it really undermined the performance dynamics. So I think the team meetings are important, and I agree with you, Fred.
Did you win the matches?
I lost, but I got destroyed by Iwasaki. I lost to Matsushita, and it was a really bad loss for England at the Worlds. What about you, Rob? Have you had any sort of team meetings which have not gone as well as it could have done, undermine the confidence of the team?
I think I mentioned on a podcast when John Toshak got the Wales job, and we had that meeting.
Yeah, right.
When I complained about the food, and I was only one, and nobody really backed me, and I never played for Wales again. So not really. But I'm interested into Fred. So. The first test, they'll play on the opening day. So your routine will be you get to the ground for what? So those guys, they'll get to the ground for what time?
Well, team bus will probably leave, I don't know. Say it's at a 10 o'clock start. Team bus might leave at 8. Get into the ground. You'll have team time, which is usually an hour or 40 minutes before where you all get together. Before that, it's up to you to do what you need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is when I play. I don't know what these lads do. Yeah. So if you want to go in the nets... just hit a few balls, or you want to bowl a few, and then you come together, you do your warm-up, you do your fielding drills, and then you have a bit of a chat. But I hated it, me. I hated all that, because I thought, well, I don't mind hitting a few balls, or if we lose a toss on a ball, and I'll bowl 4 or 5 balls and just get my body going. Yeah. But all my work was done a few days before. Yeah. I'm not turning up on the day of a match thinking I need to top up here. If I'm not done then... I'm not ready.
So just say if you're fielding the first day, you've had a long day in the field, it's boiling hot. Just say it's not been a great day. You get on the bus, go back to the hotel, you eat, and then do you all just then go to bed, massage, or do you have a meeting?
No, there's not. You might have a chat in the dressing room after, but no team meeting on
Straight back to the hotel.
Straight back to the hotel, maybe have a swim. Some lads will go for a massage, do whatever you want to do, go out for dinner.
Right. Did you share rooms or room alone?
I shared with the wife.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, so they could take their wives?
I did, yeah.
I
mean, a kid.
They can do that?
Well, not really, but I did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then
You're away for a long time.
Long
It must be
time.
psychologically draining for some players, particularly if they get into a bad run of form.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to get out of it. They're thousands of miles away from their support network, and they're trying to change the dynamic in their mind. Have you got any experience of how to turn that around?
well, as a player, I was fine. As a player, I could go back to my room in the evenings and just switch off.
Yeah.
I really could. As a captain, I found it really difficult, especially when we was losing and you was under pressure. And the strange thing is, even as captain, only thing you can affect is your performance. You can't do anything for the other lad. You can try and help them, but it's not on you. It's not you.
Yeah.
And even though someone's having a shocker or you've lost 5 wickets and that, it just plays on your mind. There's nothing you can do. Yeah. And it was horrible.
So what do you think of this series then? What do you think? You know, do you think England are favourites? Do you think?
I don't think they're favourites.
No?
I think England win though.
Do you think they win?
I think England win 3-2.
3-2.
I'm not quite as bullish. I was saying, they could win 4-1. I think the big thing about us, I'm going to contradict myself here. The big thing about Australia is you want to start well. Because all that pressure that is on you can quickly turn on them. If Australia start getting beat, you're getting taxis and things, and the taxi drivers will start slagging the Aussies off. The public will start slagging the Aussies. The press will do it. It's brilliant. But I don't think we'll start well.
Because it's at the Gabba?
The Gabba suggests that Australia do well there.
Yeah.
I think we'll lose at the Gabba, and all the pressure will be on.
Is it a fast pitch?
It's a fast, bouncy pitch.
Mitchell Stark?
Mitchell Stark, he's going to be handful on there. Handful. We'll lose at the Gabba. We'll win in Adelaide. Day-night game, pink ball, going to swing around Jimmy Anderson.
That'll suit England.
Yeah. And then we will get beat in Perth.
Red hot,
fast and bouncy. Yeah. Although it's a new stadium. Then we'll win in Melbourne and Sydney, 3-2.
3-2.
There you go.
Yeah, Rob, just going back to preparation, because it strikes me that the Premier League, the matches are coming so thick and fast. You don't have a great deal of time to think strategically about what you want to do to maximise performance. But pre-season, you have a bit of time. You have a break, you go on holiday. Yeah. But then you go on these tours to Asia and all over the place. Do you think the preparation for Premier League players is as good as it could be?
Yeah, I think so. I love pre-season.
Talk through pre-season. What would you do to build up and be absolutely fit and sharp on the opening day?
But I don't think you build up now, because for me, I think in this modern times, you have to you can't have 6 weeks off. So for me, I would go on holiday and I would train every single day on the beach. Yeah. I would be. So I would never get a rest. I would obviously tone it down a little bit, but I would keep myself physically fit, do running on the sand. So I would go back in as sharp as I was, not sharp, as fit as I was. You know, so that would be my thing. But in terms of preparation for Premier League games, so basically you do a bit on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I would know who my opponent was, obviously, in the weeks I watched so much football. I'd maybe watch a clip on him, which I'd know him anyway. You know, what's he good at, what's he not so good at. Thursday, I would go out for something to eat every week. That was my preparation. Friday, I would sleep in downstairs, away from my wife and my family, on my own.
Is that her choice or yours? I don't know.
It's my choice and my choice. So 9 o'clock every Friday, I'd be in bed at home. I would get up at 9 o'clock. I'd have a fry up. Yeah. I'd drive to the ground on my own. You know, but I'd have to go on my own. My wife and kids.
Was that your choice, or nobody come with you?
My choice again. That would get.
Hang on, but a fry up, is that
fry up? Yeah, that was my. That was.
I had a bacon butter every morning.
Fry up. You know, people say I've pasta or chicken, whatever. I had a fry up. Well, home games. I then get to the ground. But the first at the ground, I'd have a hot bath. And I was one of these type of players. If the gaffer would have said to me, "Go out 5 to 3, don't warm up," I could have done that easily, because I don't get, and there will be a scientific reason behind it. You go out onto the pitch at 2:20 to warm up. You go back in at 2:45. You're sitting down then for 10 minutes, and you go out and at 100 mile an hour. Yeah. So what is the benefit of a warm up? I'm sure we can do that on another podcast. What is the benefits of warming up? Because you're out. So it's December. It's going to be cold. You go out at 2:20. You run round. You kick balls. Then you go. You've got a sweat on. You go back in. You sit down for 10 minutes.
No, put the eating on.
What?
The eating not on.
The eating's on. Yeah, but you're going to be.
You go and sit down for 10 minutes after the warm up before going out to play. Well, that is ridiculous.
But there might be a scientific reason why that happens. I'd like somebody on the hashtag Fred Sav Syed. Can they tell us why is a warm up so good if you do it for 25 minutes, but then go and sit down for 10 to 15 minutes before you kick off at 3 o'clock at 100 mile an hour?
Well, what we would do is 45 minutes before the match started, we'd go and warm up on the match table. So you're getting used to the light, the feel of the table, so you can take that out. You get your shots going, so you feel comfortable in what you're doing. But then I'd always make sure that I stayed active, so that my body was still warm. Put the tracksuit on, and you would let your muscles get cold because otherwise you get a niggle, don't you? If you
I'd go out for team time.
Team time
for warm up.
Yeah,
a bit first in, I hated it. And then I'd go and have a coffee, bacon butty, sit down for a bit, and then.
Could you have gone?
I always like 40 minutes before kick-off, before we started, to myself, to have a brew and watch a bit of telly.
Just to get your mind completely away from the intensity, the pressure of it all.
I'd love to say it was that. It was just I liked it. And then I'd go out and do my bit. Like before I batted, I probably should have warmed up before I batted. I'd just sit there on me. I'd just sit there and have a brew, and then
So just walk out.
yeah. Well,
That's unbelievable.
no, because what happened is, say if I was batting at 6, then after 4 wickets down, is that right? Yeah, I'm in at 4 wickets. So I'd be in my pants till 3 wickets down, and then I'd have a mad rush to get my kit on. I'd sit there, maybe swig a Red Bull and a cup of coffee. Yeah. And then if a wicket drops, I put my brew down, swing my arms around and go and walk out.
That's it.
What about if you're opening the bowling?
If I was opening the bowling, I put my brew down, swing my arms around and go and have a bowl.
That's amazing. That's so interesting.
So interesting.
You know, on the preparation thing, and sometimes it going over the top and being prescriptive. I mentioned the World Championships in Manchester. So we had this Swedish coach, Søren, who was an unbelievable professional. And we did all the things you would expect that you should do to prepare for a match. But when he turned up, he had this whole list of other things that he said were performance-related and we had to do. So when we had a shower, he said you must make sure there's a bath mat outside the shower. So when you get out, there's no chance of slipping because we don't want to have a year of preparation wasted by slipping over. He said when you go to bed, I never thought of any of this. When you go to bed, you take the phone out of its socket because otherwise the opposition could get your hotel room number and call you at 2 a.m. He said that
fire alarms going off.
Yeah.
Go on, what happened?
Fire alarms going off. We were playing for Wales against, it was either Finland or, I can't remember who it was, but we're in the hotel, 3 a.m, fire alarm went off.
Right, really?
Yeah, and there was a video on social media this week. Peru qualified for the World Cup. And if you look at social media and put Peru fireworks, the Peruvian fans went outside the opposition hotel and they let fireworks off at 3:30 in the morning. It was unbelievable. So it's happened to us.
I missed 2 fire alarms, not come in yet. Seriously.
Really?
It's one with England under-19s in Birmingham. I saw him the other night, so I called Alex Morris. Oh, lads are outside. Couldn't find us. We were still in club. And then I missed one at Edinburgh coming out of the hotel.
Really?
Yeah, but then he said if you're in the competition venue and somebody comes up to shake your hand, don't shake their hand because you might get an infection.
It's only table tennis.
I know, well,
really?
But it was it. And the thing is, though, I could see what he meant. He had all of these rules, right? Tons of them. And you're trying to play without inhibition and in a creative way, and you've got all of these different demands, all of these tick boxes. I actually found that quite difficult. I think when it comes to technology, you want your Formula One team, for example, to optimise the car. You want them to be in and dirty with the detail. But when it comes to actually performing, I think sometimes too many demands and prescriptions can undermine your freedom.
But I think sport's an art, not a science.
Yeah, exactly.
Which some people will go, and I'm not saying I'm right. That's just my view on it. Where other people think
great way of putting
complete opposite.
Yeah. What I used to do in preparation as well, I think I've mentioned on another podcast that when I had the kids, I used to stop in a supermarket car park and sleep for an hour and a half because I knew as soon as I got home, the wife would have had the kids.
Did you sleep better in a supermarket? Why a supermarket? Was the one better than you? Was that better at Asda than Tesco? Or why did you stop in supermarkets?
Well, I don't think you can mention because we're on the BBC podcast, Andrew. I think if I mention one.
Are you sure you're not a dogger?
What?
Are you sure you've not been dogging in car parks?
Anyway,
around Leicester.
So When I lived in Manchester, and I still do live in Manchester, so when we had the kids, you know, I was that shattered. I knew as soon as I get home, it would be like, you haven't seen the kids, you have them now. So I just thought I need an hour and a half kip. So I'd put my seat back in my car, leave the eating on, have a sleep for an hour and a half before I got home in 5
No, they don't go far back in them Lamborghinis, though, the seats, do they?
Well, you should know.
Mine don't move.
Yeah.
So, and when it comes to the pressure of the Ashes, you talked already that the pressure's intense. You get there, the customs officers, people walking down the street, the press, the media, the attention.
I've experienced both sides of it.
Yeah.
2005 was brilliant. After the first Test match, when I bottled it, I really did bottle it in the first Test match, and I thought I'm never going to do that again, and I'm just going to enjoy it. And then in that, it was just like the crest of a wave. The worst thing about that series was it ended.
Oh,
we won it, and it was brilliant, and I loved it. But I wanted another game the next week. I was enjoying it that much.
Is there more pressure for an England cricketer playing in Australia or playing at home?
It's a good question. I think at home there's more scrutiny, obviously from the English press and the English media. But then I suppose the holy grail for any cricketer is to win in Australia. So I think from that respect, the pressure you put on yourself is probably greater out in Australia. Like, you look at Jimmy Anderson at the minute, England's best ever bowler, international, great now. But the final piece in the jigsaw for him to becoming amazing is to perform well and win well in Australia, which he hasn't done.
Yep.
So there's different kinds of pressures on all different people. Jimmy will be desperate to do well over there. I would love to have done well in Australia. So the pressure's slightly different.
Who was the Australian player who made you feel the most anxious? Somebody who was out there on the field and you knew that person was going to niggle you, was going to find your weaknesses.
It wasn't so much niggling. I don't care what they say, or I don't care people coming at me. The one bowler who made me inadequate was Glenn McGrath.
I knew you were going to say that.
Glenn McGrath. Shane Warne was
what a player.
Shane Warne was brilliant. He'd put it on a length, but let's be honest, he's a spinner. Brett Lee was quick, but he was nice to bat against. Glenn McGrath, he just bowled it where I couldn't hit it.
Really?
The accuracy is incredible.
It's horrible. Do you know when you're batting against someone and it hits your bat, you're quite relieved?
Yeah,
it shouldn't be like that. It should be, I'm hitting this. Most bowlers I batted against, I'm hitting it. I'm going at it. I'm hitting it. But with Glenn, it was, thank God it hit me back, that one.
Did you ever get the better of him?
For brief moments, yeah. For brief moments. I remember because only when he started sledging, because he was the world's worst I've ever. It was like he had Tourette's, and I don't think he'll mind me saying he's not the brightest, Glenn. And he just used to shout at you.
What would he say?
He just like expletives.
Really?
Yeah, and he'd question you, and then you went back at him, and he didn't know what to do. It was like he scrambled his computer, and he'd look around the team for someone to help him. It's like, jog on, Glenn.
So people who don't know, about cricket. So you talk about Glenn McGrath, Fred, and when I went to see my first cricket match, I was amazed how far the wicketkeeper stands back.
Yeah.
When you see it, I couldn't picture. When you see it on TV, you can't picture it. It's ridiculous. So on that opening ball, Glenn McGrath charges at you. When do you prepare for your shot? And is there times where you can hear the ball whizzing past you, and when you look back, can you believe how
times
far...
you can feel it? Not so much of Glenn McGrath, because he wasn't one of the quicker ones, but seemed quicker for some reason. He hit your bat hard. But like, say for instance, the first test at the Gabba,
Stark,
right? You've got this pitch which is fast and bouncy, and you stand there, wicket goes down, you start walking out, you walk onto the pitch, and then as you walk in, you walk past the wicketkeeper very quickly. And then you get to your point, and then you stand in front of your wickets, and then you turn round, and they're so far away.
How far back, feet-wise?
What is it?
Metres.
Well, there's been times, there's a 30-yard circle in one-day cricket, and sometimes he's just stood inside that.
30 yards.
So people you can't picture, can you?
Such a great point. It is so striking.
But you get the Gabba's brilliant though to bat and bowl one, because it's fast and you can trust the bounce.
So you can feel it.
You get a bouncer, and then you'll see it going past your ear. You just move your head out the way, and you can feel the wind of it going past as it goes, and you follow it round and see how far back it goes. Mate, it's brilliant. I promise you, it's amazing.
Really?
Amazing.
And so the person who that would be at its most potent would be Brett Lee. Fast, sharp,
Yeah, Brett Lee.
Aggressive.
Yeah, but the nice thing about Brett Lee was, without getting boring, was he had such a nice bowling action that you never lost sight of the ball. Where it's these guys like a Wazim Akram who cover the ball, or someone's got a kink in their action. You know, it makes it seem quicker almost.
And it would be more difficult to predict where the ball was going?
No, I think you get a sixth sense or something. You do know for some. I don't know how, because you get, what, 0.4 of a second?
Yeah.
But
Is that what it is? 0.4 of centre react?
Quicks, yeah, but
Tell you what, just think about that for a second. I mean, that's as long as it takes for the electric
what
signals to go from
Your
the
teeth,
brain.
your teeth are.
But
you
the feeling, I promise you, you stand there,
It's interesting.
and then you're tapping your. I used to tap my bat on the floor,
Yeah.
and then I look up, and I can see him setting off, and then you think, here he comes, and then as he gets closer,
Is your heart racing? No.
No, not really. And then as he gets closer and closer, then you lock on then. And then you're like, come on. And as it gets closer. And then he lets go. And then if it's a bouncer, and then you just move out of the way. And as that ball's going past your cheek, mate, the feeling is unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Can I just ask you a bit on that? You said the bounce, you could trust the bounce at the Gabba.
Yeah.
There are some grounds which are so uneven, the ball will deviate in a way that you can't possibly predict.
Yeah, the fast bouncy grounds are the ones which you love playing on. Like the Oval used to be. Old Trafford used to be, but then Old Trafford got a bit naughty because it'd get lower. It'd still keep its pace. So if you got a bouncer, you wasn't quite sure sometimes whether you went under it, out the way of it, or try and play it. And that's when you start getting into problems. Or you played on a pitch on the last day, which has crumbled and the cracks start appearing.
Right.
And I've played forward a couple of times to like full balls and been hit on the head because it just bounces and hits you on the head.
So does the Gabba crack the pitch?
It does, but it stays fine.
So if it hits a crack, so for the people who don't know about cricket...
Well, it could either shoot on the floor.
Yeah.
It could
right.
veer up at your head.
Yeah.
Right.
It could jag back and hit you in the nuts.
Really?
Yeah. But you're going to take all that out. You're going to take all that out. You just got to play the ball.
You mean you've got to get it out of your mind?
Don't worry about
Otherwise,
it. If it happens, it happens.
When a ball hits you on the head at pace when you got the helmet on, how does it feel?
I've only ever been rocked once. I broke my nose and cheekbone in Pakistan, which went through the gap between my grill and my visor in the nets. Because like you used to be able to change, I used to have it quite wide, and it went through and hit me. But then I got hit on the head against Mornay Morkel at the Oval.
South African.
And I went to hook him and it hit me flush on the badge. And I got hit on the head a lot, to be fair, because I used to take it on and my helmet was good. But this one, like, rocked me. And he came down saying, "You're all right." I said, "Yeah, I'm all right. Physio came on, and I was a little bit rocked. And then next ball...
When you say rocked, groggy?
Yeah, a bit groggy and a bit, I mean, all right, yeah. But then the next ball, just to save face, I decided, as he's running in, I'm just going to play a forward defensive shot. I don't care where he bowls it, I'm going to come at him. And the big soft lad bowled a full ball. And I played it, and I said to him, "Why have you done that? Why have you not tried to hit me on the head again? I just can't get my head around it."
He was doing it almost in
Then
sympathy.
he did it next ball, so I hooked him.
Wow. Amazing.
But so the helmet provides protection, but it can really hurt. You broke your nose. I would have thought that fear must be part of the emotion when you're going in to face a fast bowler who could.
Fear is the emotion when you're watching. Because and it depends where you watch from. Like I grew up at Old Trafford on fast pitches, and the view from the side. So you're in the dressing room watching from the side, and you can't always see the ball that clearly from the side because it's quick.
Yep.
And then you see the ball going so far back, and you think, "Blimey, how quick's that? This is horrible."
Yeah.
I remember as a 15-year-old kid playing my first game in the senior team, like bricking it before I got out there. And I got in the middle and he bowled it, and I thought, "I see, that's all right. What am I worried about?"
Yeah.
So the fear, once you get out in the middle, you're fine.
The amazing thing about it is because the ball is coming so fast, and I read a couple of papers on this, that most cricketers, high-level cricketers, have already decided whether to play off the front or the back foot before the ball has left the bowler's hand. So you're reading their body
read the
language.
bowler.
Yeah. And so what you were saying just was really interesting, that some bowlers will come in and they're concealing the ball in their hand. You don't know where the seam is in relation to their fingers. The complexity of it is so...
When you think about it...
When you think about the variation of the pitches, you mentioned the Gabba file. Just give us a quick summary of the pitches at the different grounds that they're going to play at.
Well, you've got the Gabba, which will be fast and bouncy.
Yep.
Historically, you win the toss, you have a bat. Try and score as many runs as you can. However, the pitch is probably its best on second and third day. Then it starts, like all test pitches, to deteriorate a little bit. So second innings, batting last, gets harder.
Right.
So that's why you bat first. You don't want to bat last.
The toss is massively important, Gabba.
I think so.
You bat.
Yeah. You bat on everyone.
Really?
Unless there's something so wrong. The only toss I won in Australia was in Melbourne. And I was stood on the pitch the morning and I said to Ian Botham, he was vocal and everything, I said, what would you do? He says, I don't know. I said, cheers, Beefy. We won the toss, we had a bat, I think we bowled out for tea. Adelaide, day-night test match, bit different swing around in that twilight hours.
Yeah.
The pitch isn't particularly fast, it dies, it gets slower, it spins as the game goes on. So you're tempted to play 2 spinners. Lion for Australia will come into that one. Perth, I think, is on a new ground. So who knows?
Yeah.
Historically fast and bouncy. Melbourne's a drop-in pitch.
What's that mean?
Well, they grow them off the ground.
Right.
It's a rugby pitch, it's a football pitch, and then they put it in, they drop it in.
Right, the wicket.
In a big hole, yeah. So they drop the pitch in. So it's grown off the ground.
You're kidding.
And then it comes in on this massive caterpillar thing, and then they drop them in.
Oh, yeah.
The pitches at Melbourne, not necessarily that good.
Right.
Might seam around a little bit, no real pace. And then Sydney, that'll start off, bit of pace, it'll die, it'll spin a lot. It'll spin a lot as the game goes on.
Last bit on this, Rob. You asked Fred whether it's more difficult to play the Ashes in Australia or at home. If you're under pressure as a footballer, and a bad run of results, would you rather be away from home or at home?
Away.
Really?
Home.
Away from home. Would you rather be home?
Love playing at home.
I'd rather be away. Because...
The fans that got on your back.
Yeah, I'd rather play away because there's travelling support. You know, the home fans are great, but I just think when that bit of pressure, if you give the ball away from home, there's 3,000 or 4,000 people having a go at you. If you give the ball away at home, there's 30,000 or 40,000 people having a go at you. And the temptation is to do, the more people there, the more of the temptation is to hide.
Yeah.
As instead of going showing for the ball for the centre half, maybe just half turn your back, not really winning it away from home. You can go and show for it and be a bit braver.
Yeah.
It's just I think the amount of people there, and so for me, playing under pressure when things aren't going well, I'd rather play away.
Fascinating topic, that. Should we move
Just
on?
a quick one.
Yeah.
England, Australia, who's winning? Thoughts, lads?
I'm with you. I think England will win 3-2. I'll go with that.
I'm gonna go.
3-0. Game of 2
Yeah, no, but
He's a knob.
Depends on the gaffer.
I've got no idea. Listen to Fred. Fred says 3-2. I'm just gonna go Australia.
Oh, the Welsh is coming out. In
Yeah.
The
England and Wales cricket board.
I'm gonna go Australia. I'm gonna go.
I don't think there'll be any draws.
3-2 Australia.
Could happen.
Get more from BBC 5 Live.
With 5 Live Podcasts.
This is exciting. Welcome to Tail Enders. I'm Greg James, that is Felix White, and on the other end of the line, somewhere in Australia, we have England's most successful bowler of all time. It's the one and only Jimmy Anderson. You all right?
Yeah, not bad, thanks.
Oh, come on, you've got a fanfare there. It's supposed to be a bit more...
Yeah, love it. Love it, Greg. Thank you.
The Tailenders Podcast.
It's going to happen every single week, so we'll be discussing everything Ashes related, and we'll give you the inside track on England's defence, hopefully, of the urn.
Search 5 Live in your podcast app.
Get more from BBC 5 Live.
Next topic. This is yours, Fred. You're a big fan of Back to the Future, and it's inspiring this subject. If you could travel back to any historical event or time, where would we all go? Rob, do you want to kick off?
It's Fred's topic, isn't it?
No, but the one thing about it was, we were talking last week and we're talking conspiracy
Went
theories.
down so well.
You want to go back to the moon landings?
A little bit, yeah. But there's so many things when you think about history.
Yep.
And you look back on some of the events which has happened and you think, you know what, I'd love to have been there. And I'm not talking about changing history or being do-gooding or anything like that. Completely self-indulgent.
Yep.
Where would you like to go just to have a bit of a nosy around, have a look around and see how it pans out?
So, I'll say where I would like to have gone. Dakota, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Idaho, Montana.
You don't need a time machine for that. Just get on a plane.
You can listen
Just go on
to
your
me.
holidays to America. Wait a minute, Rob, you've not grasped this in its entirety, have you? You've just named a load of places in America. It's hardly Bill and Ted's Adventure, is it, this? Just wants to go on his holidays, wants to get a bit of sun.
Why are you picking on me again?
Because You just said Nevada.
Let me finish.
To Vegas if you want, mate. No, I'll take you. I'll buy you a ticket.
Let me finish.
Let me finish.
California, New Mexico, and Colorado. Right? Do you know why? Do you know why? The Wild West.
What?
That's where it
all
was.
All the things you could do, all of the historical events. You want to go
to the Wild West?
Wild West.
Do you like cows or something? You're gonna be
What? No, the
Why?
Wild. So the horses, the saloons. What?
horses?
What? You could have gone. You could have gone and seen the dinosaurs.
You want to see an horse?
You want to go and see a
wanna see a
horse?
I went to see the dinosaurs.
Mate, on your way home today, when you drive through Mottram St Andrew, just before Mottram Hall on the left, have a look on the right. There's some stables. There's horses in fields.
You want to
Mate,
go?
you're risking life. You're risking life and limb in a time machine to go and see Mr. Ed. Hey? Oh, that red rum.
You let me finish.
You come up
They
with
had
some stuff on
horses.
this podcast. This has got to be the worst ever.
Why?
Try and justify it. Horses. What else?
I'd be like a cowboy on an horse. Yeah, and like on the horse going into the village with me like little
Into the village? What village are you going into?
The Wild West, we have saloons.
Wild West Village.
And I want to burst through the saloons where you've got the music playing and you've got everybody in there, and I want to burst in through those doors that you push and they flap back and forward. With me cowboy boots on, got the spurs on the back.
This is the only reason you want to go. You want to wear the outfit.
I've got me long
This
hair.
is pathetic. You just want to wear the clothes.
fancy dress.
I've got me Stetsons, right? And then what I want to
Stetsons? What do you want? It's a Stetson.
That's what I meant.
hat.
But I want to be there, and like when you walk in and you
What colour horse? You got a white horse, haven't you?
White.
What's it called?
Norman.
Norman.
I like names like that.
Here he is.
Norman.
Robbie
Norman.
the kid on his horse, Norman.
Can you imagine, right? I've seen the films. You're going through the bar and then the music stops. Everybody's looking. Who's this geezer here? Who's this geezer? I'm looking.
They go, oh no, it's Robbie Savage.
You know, right? And then somebody wants to challenge me.
Mate,
you have a duel.
This is what I'm thinking. You're going to have to be very good
yeah.
at shooting.
See?
You're going to have to be quick. They're
gonna
going
have
to
a
be
lot of
calling out
duels.
you left, right and centre.
Maybe horrible.
Well, you've come in, all right.
I wanna go to the Wild
You
West.
picture this. You've come in with your poncho and your Stetson, and
Yeah.
you've got your stirs on your back of your boots.
Yeah.
And your white horse called Norman.
Yeah.
The doors spring open. Here he comes. False tan white teeth. Hey? I know that. How are you? I know you're right. Outside now, 10 paces at dawn. Let's be having you.
That's what I want to do. Imagine that, 10 paces. Yeah. So everybody's looking at you, there's silence. I'm there, poncho looking like, as Freddie said,
Like
teeth were
Clint,
gleaming.
like Clint Eastwood.
And they go, who's this geezer here? Rob, what can I call myself?
I need a nickname.
Obviously, there was people like James Butler. You know who that was?
James Butler.
Wild
Wyatt
Bill.
Earp.
Wild Bill Hickok.
Yep.
He was called. What about and William H. Bonney?
Stan been doing a lot of research.
Billy the Kid.
Billy
the Kid. No, so I'd be Robbie the Rodeo Savage or something like
Robbie
that.
the Rodeo Savage on his horse,
Rodeo.
Norman. Oh, they'd be bricking it when you walk into town.
yeah.
Robbie the Rodeo Savage on Norman coming into town. Lock your daughters up, the sheriff will be out.
I mean, so there. Imagine dueling. Imagine dueling. I've seen it on films.
Well, what's your favourite end of a film where there's been a shootout? Good, the Bad and the Ugly? Fistful of
James
Dollars?
Bond, I think.
James Bond.
Bond?
What?
In a
What,
Western?
Moonraker?
Oh, he was cowboy film.
Talking about
What do you think I'm talking about?
This is your story. Now you're going
Jewel?
I like He Who Dares Wins. That's cowboy, isn't it?
He Who Dares Wins?
That was the SAS.
What is
That was when
That's
they-
their slogan.
That was when the embassy building in London, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Iranian embassy.
Yeah, Iranian.
Robbie, you said that you've been inspired by the movies of these incredible duels between the cowboys. And I'm asking you, which film? You said He Who Dares Wins and Moonraker. What is he on?
What was that one? What was that great cowboy film with Emilio Estevez? Young Guns.
Young Guns.
What a film.
What's the one with Clint Eastwood in? There's a famous
You tell us.
Clint Eastwood.
He's in three.
Money.
The Outlaw Josie Wales.
No.
Fistful of Dollars.
Fistful of Dollars.
Donners.
What, the one where
kebab
we had-
shop as well,
the one where we had-
Donners.
Kebabs there.
Eating the kebab.
The one where he had the little the metal
Fistful.
plate,
A
and he
few
got
dollars more.
That's a good one.
That's the one I
But
meant.
Clint isn't in the shootout at the end of that.
What about Wayne?
Lee Van Cleef.
Shane.
Well, so mine.
Tell you what, that is the topic of the century.
I
that
would
one.
love it. The Wild West.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
What?
What are you gonna do?
You can have a duel.
You're gonna have a
Jill?
You-
Jill? Probably be dead after one duel. It was just one duel.
Yeah,
So you've just got to commit suicide in the Wild West.
all the things.
One duel.
No,
So,
you go,
Fred-
Matthew. You go.
Well, I think we might have a similar one. So if I could go anywhere, I grew up in a Christian family.
Yeah.
And I was told that Jesus Christ was the Son of God and the Saviour of the universe. I would love to go back to Palestine at the year dot and go to the Sermon on the Mount and listen to Jesus Christ talking and find out whether or not he's the Son of God. I don't think he is.
You just,
Hey,
you,
but then,
you just want to go and see if he gets paid more than you for a corporate. You'll be there. Well, I mean, I can better than him. I'm better than him. Hey, how much is he getting for this? He's not mentioned Black Box once. He's not saving the NHS. Tell you what, ulterior motive.
But you say that, you would have listened to him, right? So, let's not forget, Jesus spoke Aramaic, which is a common language in Judea in the 1st century ad.
Robbie,
Where'd that come from?
Robbie, right, he spoke Aramaic.
Aramaic.
Right, I'll be honest with
You
you.
understand him?
Yeah, but what I'm saying here is the language barrier is not the main issue here. We've got a time machine.
But he's not going to
We're
stand
travelling back in time, and the one thing you're worrying about is a language barrier. Come on,
get a
Robbie.
translator,
We've travelled back to the year dot. And are you going to understand him?
Hey, but even if it turns out not to be the Son of God, don't you think it's incredible? This one guy has inspired a following of 2 billion people who actually think he is a supernatural being.
So you want
And he
to go
convinces-
just to disprove it? Disprove it.
But how did he get his apostles? His apostles were prepared to die for him. Imagine if you turned up somewhere and a guy said to you, "Yeah, I'm the Son of God." You had to believe him enough to give your life for that. But the guy must have been an extraordinary... I mean, even if he wasn't the Son of God, which I don't think he was, think of the extraordinary
he then?
Well,
personality.
Joseph wasn't God, was he?
Who?
Joseph. That was his dad, wasn't it?
He's a carpenter.
Yeah, but it was an immaculate conception, wasn't it? According to
The
theology.
Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
Well, so what does that mean then? I know she was a virgin.
What do you mean? What does it mean?
Yeah. What did you say? Immaculate
Wait,
conception.
I'm going to minute. What does virgin mean?
No, virgin, immaculate conception. What's that
So
mean?
the idea is that he didn't have a genetic father, but the father was God, and that he was a spiritual, supernatural being clothed in a human body. And he, even if he wasn't, even if all of that is complete rubbish, what I'm interested in is how this person, this human being, inspired a following that has taken over the world. It'd be fascinating to... I mean, you would have been in the saloon with your Stetson. I would be there talking to Jesus Christ.
I'm with Matthew on this. I'd like to go and meet him. I'm
Interesting,
not
wouldn't
going to disprove it. I'm going there to meet him. I'd like
See what
to,
he's like.
I'd like to go to the stable.
With
Yeah.
Mary and Joseph.
With 3 wise men taking a gift. What would you take him?
Yeah, good
A
question.
gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and a Giacomo suit.
I'll take him a copy of Black Box thinking.
Yeah, but all he said, imagine going that time when, like Matthew says, he's talking to all these people, even not in a morbid way, but even like the crucifixion and things.
Yeah.
Just trying to understand it. Why?
Fascinating.
And then you talk about, would you try and save him? But then
Yeah.
you just alter. But that's what he
History,
wanted.
The whole of history. Do you know, have you ever seen Monty Python's Life of Brian?
Brilliant film.
Isn't that funny? Because they actually start the film with the Sermon on the Mount, and he says, "Blessed are the peacemakers," and they're standing like 300 yards away, and they say, "What did he say? Blessed are the cheesemakers." And then they totally satirise this life. I think it'd be really interesting.
So
to go and
you
see.
believe in Jesus?
I believe the historical person existed.
He
'cause there's a-
exists. A historical figure, isn't he?
Yeah.
He
I
definitely was. Yeah,
He definitely
he
was.
definitely was Jesus. Obviously,
Eh?
it was a Jesus, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But so why don't you believe in God then?
Hey?
You're
Well,
Jesus,
just 'cause
was
I
the
think-
Son of God, but you're an atheist.
Yeah.
Which therefore you don't believe in God,
Yep.
but you believe in Jesus.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
I
kind of the same
think that
thing.
when he was telling people, I am actually not a human, I'm the Son of God, I think he was lying.
Right.
I don't believe that. I think that that is false. But what he did have is that's my personal opinion. I know a lot of people listening will disagree with that, but I'm amazed at the social influence that he was able to create in Palestine and Judea.
But you say
Such
that now,
2000
social influencers. Look at these on Instagram now. They're called social influencers.
Yeah.
And they're influencing millions of Kardashians.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, these are influencers
And
in
also,
completely different ways, mind.
and you also have cult figures, don't you, who create a new religion, and they will inspire
Scientology.
people. Scientology.
I was watching that Louis Theroux thing overnight.
Amazing, wasn't it?
Where else would you go?
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs.
Love to have seen what it was like. I tell you what would be interesting. We're talking about
Yeah, but you're romanticising about dinosaurs here.
Yeah.
Right? Say you want to go and
But
see
look at Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it
but
be
you go and
great?
see dinosaurs, right? So you get out, you stop your time machine in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
You get out, you wander around.
Get-
You wouldn't get out your car at Knowsley Safari Park, would you? Lion Pit.
To be
Why
fair-
would you get out in front of dinosaurs? You're going to get killed.
You'd have had a good game at table tennis against the Tyrannosaurus Rex. You know, he'd have probably beat you on his forehand.
Why would you? I'd love to go to. You know the days of the Colosseum.
Oh yeah, Rome, ancient Rome.
I reckon I'd been good at that.
A gladiator.
Yeah,
They were all, the
on.
average height. Well, listen, I've got no research here, but I've done this at school. The average height of a Roman gladiator was 5'4".
No.
not a Roman gladiator,
What?
a Roman.
A Roman.
Yeah.
A Roman was 5'4". Could you imagine if he walked there with a gigantism?
I'd have my own arena.
Imagine.
Tell you what though, it's bloodthirsty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't? Would you have wanted to fight or watch?
I don't know. I'd have a watch first and then test the water. Like, if there's a bad one, I'd go and have a go.
The thing about you said Egypt, right?
Egypt.
So the pyramids, right?
Yep.
I've seen photos. I don't know if they're real or not, but they're photos of the bricks. Are they bricks? They put the pyramids up with stone.
Yeah.
Stone.
Yeah.
How do they make those pyramids?
What?
It's on fire.
You spat at me then as well.
So those pyramids, which were roughly 4,000 years ago,
You're not reading now, are you?
2,600 to 2,500 BC, the pyramids and Sphinx were built.
Yeah.
How?
Well, that's
How?
that's one of the old conspiracy theories because the technology seems to be well in advance of what it should have been at that time in human history. So a lot of people, Fred probably believes it too. They think that aliens.
I seen a man.
Yes.
I
You
seen
heard
a man.
that one?
Yeah, but
I seen a man standing next to one of the stones, and the stone is bigger than the man.
But they came from thousands of miles away, didn't they?
How?
Unless they cast them himself, made them himself. But the one thing about the Egyptians as well is like going on conspiracy theories again, which I love, is that the hieroglyphics depict electricity. Some of the hieroglyphics depict electricity and light bulbs 4,000 years ago
You're not reading that either, are you?
in the Temple of Dendra. Dendara. Yeah.
Do you know what? There is a picture that could be construed as looking like a light, but that is true. That's an amazing thing. It could be coincidence, couldn't it? It could be that they put it in there not thinking about electricity, but something that had a shape that we would subsequently think of as a light bulb. It doesn't necessarily mean that they knew about electricity.
But I think going back to the times of the Egyptians and building all that would be fascinating because nobody really knows. There is another theory knocking about, isn't there? That in them days in Egypt was far superior to everything else. Because there's even things with laptops on them, like statues and stuff. Yeah. And they think that they were far advanced and then a meteorite hit it and then they had to start again.
You know what I
But
mean?
then there's also the thing about time travel has actually happened.
yeah, they do.
It's actually happened.
Yeah.
There's a photograph in the 1940s in British Columbia of a fella in a crowd of people who's got a printed T-shirt on and sunglasses on. It's a proper photograph surrounded by all these older people. And then there's all these other things.
There was
like,
no sunglasses in the 1940s.
well, there's sunglasses, but not printed T-shirts.
I think wearing sunglasses, Sunglasses were real, aren't they?
Not
1940s.
printed T-shirts. Have a look at it. You see, do you know
What does it say on the T-shirt?
It's Big M. A big M on his T-shirt.
Really?
And there's all other things like mobile phones in paintings and things like that going back to the 1930s.
Tell you what,
and
we've
stuff.
gone on conspiracy theory. He's
I was
back.
just trying to get...
He's back.
But can you travel back in time?
Well, they say that with a wormhole,
Yeah.
you know, if you
can travel back but not forward.
Yeah, there's some consequence of theoretical physics, I think quantum theory or relativity, that does predict the potential for going back in time. But there are deep logical problems with that, because if you could go back in time, you could do something that would mean that you weren't born, which would mean...
Back to the future, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is
Flux
quite...
capacitor.
I think, yeah, the
So when
flux
you're-
capacitor.
What?
How did he come up with the idea?
He banged his head on the toilet.
He knows Back to the Future.
Yeah. Old Biff here,
So-
I know it.
Emmett Brown.
Marty McFly.
So what about deja vu then?
Yeah.
That's what do you mean? Yeah, that's
a
deja vu. Is you've been there before? No?
Yeah.
What?
When you get
What's that got to do with
What's
the
that got
topic?
to do with
But when you get deja vu,
Eh?
so
Yeah.
we've all had it. I think
Yeah.
you've been in a place where you've been, and
No, you just think...
you have. So
I know what it is, Rob. I know that.
So deja vu, is that going forward or
Not
back?
time travel.
That's why you do the double take, where you think you've been there
Correct.
before.
So what's that then?
Tell you what, that is I get that quite a lot. I think that's a really
So good point.
discombobulating thing.
I'm getting it now with Robbie. What about... Yes.
Hey, here's one for you. If you could go back and watch one sporting event, any sporting event, and you could be there and watch it live, what would it be? I would go the Rumble in the Jungle, 1974, a jungle clearing in the former Zaire, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, unbelievable fight.
I'd go back for the music. James Brown was on before the fight.
He was, yeah.
Thank you.
Legend is.
I think I'd like to go back to.
I'd go back this morning and have a shower. If I were you.
I've had one, Andrew. I had a football match.
I don't like it, does he? He doesn't like it these
No,
days,
that
does he?
one.
I've had a
Since he
shower.
started Strictly and take himself serious
Oh,
again.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm Robbie Savage.
Slightly
I'll tell
above
him.
the show, right?
I've had a shower this morning. I had my kids' football match, quarter final of the cup. It's not about winning; it's about taking part and the kids having fun. We won 3-1. We're in the semi-final, so I went home, had a shower, and then went to come to the podcast. So, knowing you two now, it's bizarre. I'd like to go back to seeing him do the 5 wickets. That's true, because now knowing our relationship, go see him doing the 5 wickets and seeing you getting beat in the Olympics. I'd like to hammer you.
Yeah.
I'd love to hammer you.
You
be
want
in
to
the
see
crowd.
him
Yeah,
getting his
yeah.
glorious moment in the
Yeah.
screen. You want me at the worst,
Yeah.
in the deer.
Yeah.
If it was
Why?
me, like, I'm like knowing you two now, I wouldn't watch either of you. I won't even go to a sporting event.
What would you do?
I'd go and watch Elvis's comeback in 1969.
Oh,
Would you?
you're his reincarnate. You'd be watching yourself.
Yeah. Just a quick one on time travel. We
Yeah.
finish.
He loves it,
If
doesn't he?
if I travelled faster than the speed of light
Yep.
in a direction, would I time travel?
Well, you can't
If you-
travel
but-
faster than the
but-
speed of light, can
But
you?
no, but if I can, come on, Matthew.
Actually, some particles can
So
travel.
if something's coming at me, like the light's bouncing off it, coming towards me. If I travelled faster
yeah.
in the opposite direction, would I be travelling through time?
Do you know, my intuition, having been asked it, is yes. I mean, the way that
But what direction would I have to travel to go back in time?
I don't think it would matter if you were going at that speed. Because think about it. The way Einstein thought about the theory of relativity is if he's running away from a clock and getting faster and faster, but looking back at the clock, as soon as he reaches the speed of light, the clock doesn't move anymore, does it?
And he says time is relative.
He does. Should we finish there? That was brilliant, guys. Really loved it. Thank you, and thank you for listening. If you've missed any of the shows we've done today, they're available to download at the 5 site. They're available to
Where
download.
are they available? 55555. Let's go back in time. Try again, Matthew.
Thank you for listening. If you've missed any of the shows we've done to date, they're available to download at the 5 Live website and all the usual podcast places. Please use the hashtag FredSavSide and get in touch through the week. If you could leave a review on iTunes and give us a rating, that would be great. But for now, from all of us, goodbye.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Thank you for downloading the Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy podcast. If you like what you hear, then why not have a look at what else 5 Live podcasts have to offer at bbc.co.uk/5live.